Welcome back, everybody. I have a quick mail day to be able to show you here in a second, but I wanted to do get two things before I jumped over and showed you the cards I was able to pick up this past week. Wanted to first tell you that tomorrow night I'll be going live again. We're going to be doing RJ and I and Jake are going to be doing a recap of what makes the 1952 Bowman set great. So it should be a lot of fun, and we have a special guest, Orlando, for Collector's Dream. So I'll be putting information out there shortly later today about the live stream for tomorrow night, which will be 7:30 Central Standard Time, so 8:30 Eastern, and I think it'll be 5:30 Pacific if I got my time zones correct. So please join us. Feel free to comment and be part of the show. It should be pretty enjoyable. All right. So and the other second one was as people have mentioned before, I've noticed in my channels, I've mentioned that I am a runner. And I am going to be running the Chicago Marathon again this fall. What I thought about doing was adding a little bit of a video log, kind of tracking the training if people are really interested in it. So it's not baseball related, it's not card related, but I thought people might find it kind of interesting just kind of following my travels. I kind of prepare for and compete in the Chicago Marathon later in October. Believe it or not, actually preparing for that starts as early as now, as I start kind of building my body back up in preparation for the training that's needed over the next couple months to be able to succeed at 26.2 miles. So if you're kind of interested in that, feel free to kind of like and add some comments down here, because I think I'm going to start trying to do it. And I'd be interested if people have some questions and you think it's like a good idea. I would love to hear from you. All right, so I got a great mail day coming up here. I've been very lucky being able to make some progress in some of my projects. So I have a great collection of both pre-war and cards from the 40s and 50s to be able to show you here in a minute, plus a few others. All right, I'm going to turn the camera on. All right, so the cards you see before you don't represent the cards that I recently picked up, but are representative of the cards that I added recently. So many of them are working on some of the sets and projects that I have in my collection. We'll kind of start newest to oldest, and I'll kind of walk you through each purchase and why it kind of makes sense in my collection. So the first one we're going to pick up, or get a chance to look at, my first pickup, is the 2013 gold Derek Jeter. So I have all the gold cards, his base gold cards, except for his 2007, as I've mentioned in a recent video. But I've been also trying to pick them up in PSA holders, by and large, even though I have some SGC. So what makes this card really cool for me is that you see the completed swing, which includes his number in the back, his back there, which I think makes it really interesting. As opposed to if you just saw him do his follow through and you didn't see the number very clearly, it may not have been as cool. So I think this is a pretty cool image. This is 2013, just right after probably maybe one of his last best seasons before injury started catching up to him. Not the best overall image of his playing day cards. I would say probably my favorite one is this one from 2005, where he's jumping over Khalil Green to try and complete a double play. That's my favorite image of Derek Jeter, I mean, the cards that I have so far. So that was the first one. The next one is part of a four-card order that I picked up from Probstein. A couple of these were ones that I put in some bids in right at the very end. I was actually primarily bidding on some other cards I'll show you here in a minute. But these two in particular are ones that I was able to kind of include right at the end, and I actually ended up winning. The first being the 1971 Top Super of Bob Gibson. It has the 1971 back of Bob Gibson, followed by a different image on the front. I think this is a pretty cool item. It is a project at some point I might want to do, is try and do the Top Super sets. I love the cards that are not the traditional baseball card sizes, so I like the bigger ones and the smaller ones just because they catch my eye in a different way. And I just kind of like the uniqueness that kind of comes with them. This would be the first one that I have graded. If I were to put that set together, it'd probably be PSA or BG or BVG holders, just because the SGC ones are enormously large for that set for some reason. So we got Bob Gibson there in the background. All right, so in the same order, I was able to pick up a card from the 1958 Top set. So we'll take down Ted Williams, and I'll get a chance to put this other one up here. So this one is a card that I've never seen before, just because I'm not as familiar with the images, especially the dual player images in the 1958 Top set. It's not one I've really been kind of chasing after, but when I stumbled upon this card, I thought it was a great opportunity because of how nice the card looked. And let me get a chance to show you it here now. So it's the Rival Fence Busters, where we have Duke Snider and Willie Mays. I think Willie Mays dual images cards or dual player cards are just so undervalued in the hobby. So I was happy to be able to pick this up at the price I got. As you can see, the corners and the edges look super sharp, as well as the registration of the card itself. It's a little off center top to bottom when you put it this perspective. That's probably the one thing that kind of deters from it somewhat, but it doesn't really hurt my eyes. And on the back, it's just got this beautiful coloring here. We have this like red image that kind of houses the text that goes with the description of this card, which kind of talks a little bit about their history of being sluggers in Willie Mays' 54 MVP season. And this was actually a card that obviously was taken in an all-star game, probably during the 58 season, because you see San Francisco and LA hats on both these two players. So probably it was a card that was very cool for kids to have that were on the West Coast, but maybe a bad memory for those that were on the East Coast who cheered those players on. The next one were a series of ungraded cards that I was able to pick up from the Vintage Cards, which was the name of their eBay store. And they have these own little custom boxes they use to be able to ship the cards in, which I thought were pretty neat. So let me get a chance to show you those now. So I was able to pick up a couple cards I needed for the 48 Bowman set. Both these are commons. The first one being Buddy Kerr, who was the shortstop for the Giants in the late 1940s. You can see this was a pretty good card I got for just a few bucks, actually, so I was really happy with the price. So we got Buddy there, and we actually have another player known as Buddy, Buddy Rosar. And this one image I just really loved when I was able to get it. I thought when I was looking at this card originally that he was holding the catcher's mask, but you can see clearly that this is one he tossed behind him. And they were able to get the picture just right where the mask is still in the image, and you can see it starting to come down behind him, and he's looking up to be able to kind of catch a pop-up. Obviously a staged photo, but really kind of a cool image from the 1948 Bowman set. And he was a multiple all-star during that time too, during those war years. So that was a pretty cool image to be able to pick up there. All right, put that over there. And then also picked up in the same order my very first Leaf card, which was Ewell Blackwell of the Cincinnati Reds, also known as the Whip. I thought it was kind of interesting when I was looking up some stuff about him. There was a couple players who I wouldn't have anticipated kind of having this opinion, but there was several players who thought he was one of the most difficult pitchers to face during his career because of his sort of sidewinder delivery, if you will. He had a lot of arm problems, so he didn't have a very lengthy career, and his best season was in 47. But this card is just really cool. The dual colors on there and the black and white image that's superimposed on it that they colorized a bit as well. Very happy to be able to pick up my first one. It's not a short print by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm happy to be able to pick it up and add to my collection. The final one, I'll do the two remaining Probstein cards first. As you can see, the Tommy Bridges over here kind of alludes to, we're going to be talking about some Diamond Star cards from the 34-36 Diamond Star set, starting with Dixie Walker. Dixie Walker, a very good player during his career, starting with the Yankees and went over to the Dodgers, and I believe he finished maybe with the Giants, if I'm not mistaken. But Dixie Walker is known in baseball lore for being one of the few players that took a stance against the Dodgers management during the 1947 season, saying they did not want to play with Jackie Robinson. He was the one kind of leading the petition process, so it kind of sticks with him and his legacy probably more than any other player. And he kind of made his own bet. My wife did ask me, why did I get this card if this was a player that didn't represent my values, and that's totally true, it doesn't. But it is part of the set, and it is baseball history in the same ways where we have other players of questionable histories that have been played throughout the years, from the Black Sox scandal to even like Ty Cobb's and his history. So he certainly wasn't the only one, but probably one that is probably most known, if you will, of being a player that was not in favor of integration in Major League Baseball. So there's Dixie Walker. The next one and the final card from that purchase of Probstein is Marvin Owen. He was part of the great infield in the 1930s for the Detroit Tigers. He was their third baseman along with Charlie Gehringer and Hank Greenberg. The Marvin Owen is kind of known primarily for being the player that was involved with the physical altercation, I believe, in a 34 World Series with Joe Medwick of the St. Louis Cardinals. an altercation at third base that resulted in Joe Medwick being removed by the game from the commissioner of baseball, Kennesaw Mountain Landis. So there's Marvin Owen. You know, there was a nice little image there of him with the clubhouse behind him and players with their bats all lined up. I think it's just a really good example of what makes this set great, because you have all the different color images, the beautiful uniforms on there, and obviously what they did in the background on there. Mine's got a little bit of writing on there. Someone put an A there in cursive, but hey, that made it even more affordable, which I was happy to be able to pick it up for my collection. And then my final item that I'll be able to pick up was another Diamond Star from a different seller, and this is Billy Urbanski, shortstop for the Boston Braves for his entirety of his career. Not really a player kind of note in baseball's history, but he did jump off his best season after 1934, where he hit 293 during that season. And obviously it was another addition I needed for my set. So what you're looking at now are unique cards number 36, 7, and 8 for the set, as I continue to kind of work towards its completion. All right, so I hope to be back very soon. I got some really cool stuff still on the way that hadn't arrived yet. That is pretty special. So I'm really excited to be able to bring that and show that to everybody in the near future. So have a great rest of your day.